to really see something that said, take a look what happened. I was saved by God to make America great again.
Welcome back to another 4547blog.com presentation of the New Conservative Radio Show. I'm your host, Ninj, and you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and many more places you get your favorite podcasts. Catch the video version on YouTube, and we go live every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern. With that, let's get on with the show. With April 2nd fast approaching, folks, Trump's tariffs are about to take effect. Today I want to go over why we need these tariffs, what's the purpose of them, and American regulations being pushed out of the U.S. and how it's affecting the innovation here in the United States. Innovation in the United States has been dropping continuously for decades. We've been pushing companies away from the United States with our big corporation taxes for years. It's about time that Trump put some tariffs in effect to bring some of this stuff back, because they've been taking advantage of our system, getting labor overseas way cheap and not feeding our economy, feeding the economy of other companies. But then our market is open to these corporations to sell, so they can make profits out of our economy and out of our market, but they're not going to bring any kind of business into our market to pay our workers and feed our economy. They're just pulling out of our economy. So for weeks, we've witnessed the Democrats cry and bitch and moan about the tariffs that the President Trump is about to impose on the rest of the world. And it's funny because the Joint Economic Committee of Democrats has written a paper on just that, the state of U.S. manufacturing. And what they came up with was decades of manufacturing decline and outsourcing left U.S. supply chains vulnerable to distribution. Isn't that funny? They say the coronavirus exposed the state of the U.S. supply chains, which we all know it did. They mandated masks, which they couldn't even supply enough masks for the American people. People were running out of them, and then they were having to use their t-shirt and shit. What is a t-shirt doing for a virus? Nothing. People wearing milk cartons on their head and shit. We all remember that. Big corporations moving offshores. We've lost a tremendous amount of manufacturing over the past few decades. Since 2000, we've lost at least a quarter of our manufacturing ability here at home. The transformation of American manufacturing reduces economic opportunity for American workers, American families, especially for workers without a college degree. Now, this is coming directly from a paper that the Democrats wrote. Countering these damaging trends will require historic investments in American manufacturing infrastructure and innovation. What do you think the consequences of putting a tax on people bringing or sending their product into America will do? The ultimate objective of these tariffs is to bring manufacturing back home. When plants open, people get jobs. These are really simple economic consequences for tariffs. Of course, it's going to cost more money if we continue to pull those products from other countries, but that's not the ultimate objective. We want those people who are trying to send their product to the United States to just manufacture it here, and then they have no taxes. And instead of feeding the economy of other countries, now we're feeding the economy of our own country. This shouldn't be too hard to understand, and the Democrats do understand it, but they play dumb, or else they don't educate the rest of their parties. When the Joint Economic Committee of Democrats writes papers like this, they must only give them to the people who are able to read them. AOC and, Jasmine Crockett and the idiots of the Democratic Party must not get these papers to read. And also CNN and MSNBC, they must not be getting these papers also. Disinvestment in American-made products contributed to the severe supply chain disruption during the coronavirus pandemic. Current supply chain issues were caused by the coronavirus pandemic and resulting economic fallout. However, these effects were magnified by the long-running decline in domestic manufacturing capability that could have otherwise supplemented international production. For decades, big corporations have been using just-in-time supply chains to maximize their profits and ensure big payouts for the executives and shareholders instead of investing in workers, resiliency, and innovation. The rise of corporate concentration in recent years has also been tied to the decreased business investment because companies in concentrated markets have fewer incentives to invest. And then they go into talking shit about Trump's last term and how his attempt to spark business investment via the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act was unsuccessful. Except Trump had one of the best economies ever. It's funny how they recognize we have problems, but then try to bash Trump for his attempt to change this. In his first term, he was unsuccessful. He didn't bring as much manufacturing. He did bring a lot of manufacturing back, but he didn't bring as much manufacturing as he has this time around. We're not even 90 days in, and we have $2 trillion worth of investment in manufacturing. Trump is bringing it back. The article goes on to state, the combination of a short-term mindset paired with lagging business investment in the U.S. meant that manufacturing supply chains were ill-prepared to weather the large demand and supply shocks caused by the coronavirus pandemic. This crisis was particularly acute in the market for semiconductors, which have been increasingly manufactured overseas in recent years. And who is coming over here now? Trump got those semiconductor companies to bring manufacturing plants to America, which are going to be built now. Not only is Taiwan going to protect itself and its semiconductor manufacturing business and the longevity of being able to do this with China on its ass, it's security for them. And it's going to bring economic success to America. People in America are going to get these higher paying, higher skilled manufacturing jobs. Not all manufacturing jobs are pushing a button and pulling a lever. There's a lot of assembly that takes place, and especially in electronics like this. Now, if you claim to be the party of the people, of the workers, but you write papers like this and then you don't do shit to bring manufacturing back home, what does that make you? It says, the decline of manufacturing closed off economic opportunity for many non-college educated workers, while other issues have limited opportunities in manufacturing for women and people of color. So they understand that manufacturing is good for non-educated workers, women, and people of color. But instead of putting tariffs on other countries that put tariffs on us in order to bring manufacturing home, all they want to do is tax the rich, make the corporations pay more because they're not manufacturing here. So let's not give them any more incentive to manufacture here. Let's just tax the product that they're sending over here more and more and more and more. And hopefully someday they'll come back. That has been their take on it, and it hasn't worked. Trump put tariffs on the countries where these manufacturers are sending their shit from, and look at what's happening. $2 trillion in investment already here in America. The article then goes on to state, automation has fundamentally changed manufacturing, leading to a significant training gap that could cost the industry $1 trillion over the next decade. While automation's role in manufacturing job losses is debated, it has significantly shifted the composition of those jobs. While new manufacturing workers could at one time expect to be trained on the job, many companies now expect most new employees to have experience in areas such as robotics, computer science, and engineering. As a result, the share of manufacturing workers with an associate's or bachelor's degree grew from 22% in 1991 to 40% in 2019. While some of the shift reflects differences in required skills, it also reflects opportunistic upskilling, where companies artificially increase posted job requirements to screen out certain workers and reduce required job training. In addition to limiting economic opportunity for workers without college degrees, this training gap represents a serious challenge for most manufacturing firms. By one estimate, 2.1 million manufacturing jobs are expected to be unfilled by 2030. Now, they are trying to pitch this like it's a bad thing, but with automation comes more skilled jobs. People that need to have experience in robotics or an associate's or bachelor's degree in computer science, because it's a lot of programming. They're programming the arms of the computers to assemble this part at this exact spot. And it's computers on an assembly line. And then the things that the computers can't do, which is obviously 60% of the other manufacturing process, is an unskilled laborer. So they're trying to pitch that because automation is infiltrating the industry, there's going to be a reduction in jobs, which there will be a reduction in jobs, but Donald Trump has brought more manufacturing jobs to America. So if they reduce how many skilled laborers they need, those skilled laborers can go to a different manufacturer and be a skilled laborer there. And then the highly skilled laborers, the engineers, the robotics people, the programmers, those people are going to be in higher paid positions. So with automation also comes higher paid positions. So there's a give and there's a take. And I think the Democrats in this paper are trying to only push the negative, that, automation is going to cost millions of dollars and manufacturing jobs are going to go out the door. But it's also upscaling the amount that people are being paid, because the type of job is changing from lower skilled, put this piece on this board, to higher skilled programmers that have to actually program the robots that are doing the assembling. So yeah, there is a job loss, but then there's also a job gain. Now this is the part of the article that really bothers me. It says, investment in infrastructure, domestic manufacturing of green technologies, and innovation are needed to reinvigorate American manufacturing. If you just took green technologies out of there, this is exactly what Donald Trump is doing right now. Investment in infrastructure, domestic manufacturing, and innovation are needed to reinvigorate American manufacturing. The tariffs that are being put in place are bringing manufacturing home, and it will reinvigorate the American manufacturing business. They go on to say targeted investments in domestic manufacturing innovations would help American industries remain competitive, preserve high-quality jobs, and spur economic growth. Does that sound familiar to you? This is all part of Biden's Build Back Better bullshit. And the way that they approach this, it didn't work at all. So Trump is doing the hard nose, hard ball. You want to hit us with tariffs, we're going to hit you with tariffs, and we're going to bring manufacturing home. And guess what worked? Playing nice hasn't worked for America. Trump had to get in their face and say, look, you want to hit us hard, we're going to hit you hard back. This is fair and equal trade. Let's take a look at this Beyond the Numbers article. In June 1979, manufacturing employment reached an all-time peak of 19.6 million. In June of 2019, employment was at 12.8 million, down 6.7 million, or 35% from an all-time peak since 1979. Employment fell during each of the 5 recessions, and in each case, employment never fully recovered to pre-recession levels. This manufacturing issue that we have in the United States is something that we've been facing for decades. This article goes on to state that during the 40-year buildup in the June 1979 peak, manufacturing equipment experienced steady but cyclical growth. Omitting the industrialization that occurred during World War II, we find that manufacturing's share of total non-farm equipment peaked in 1953 at 32%. After World War II, employment declined with each recession, but then rebounded during each recovery. In the 1960s, manufacturing equipment growth accelerated. From February 1961 to August of 1969, manufacturing added 4 million jobs, It's a 27% increase. 2 recessions during the early 1970s saw manufacturing lose 1.5 and 2 million jobs respectively, with a recovery period in between. During the period of expansion from July 1975 through June 1979, manufacturing added 3 million jobs, and employment in the industry stood at 19.6 million people. At its peak in June 1979, manufacturing employment represented 22% of total non-farm employment. but that share had fallen to 9% by June of 2019. Manufacturing's falling share of employment coincided with job growth in service-providing industries, including professional and business services, education and health services, and leisure and hospitality. Now, they say that this is a good thing because our workforce is becoming more educated, but what this means is we are shrinking the middle class because we are getting rid of middle-class jobs. In the 40 years since manufacturing employment peaked, the industry has struggled to regain the prominence it once had. Notable job losses occurred within durable goods manufacturing, especially fabricated metals and machinery and computers and electrical products. Within non-durable goods manufacturing, apparel and textile industries suffered dramatic job losses, while food manufacturing was the only component industry to add jobs. Although there were more recessions, 7 during the 40 years prior to peak employment. Compared to the numbers 5 after the peak, manufacturing employment failed to fully recover from any of the cyclical losses after June of 1979 and resulted in 34% net loss over the 40 years following the peak. So for 40 years, we were a major player in manufacturing worldwide. And then the following 40 years after that, we are not a major player. We slowly decline in manufacturing. What do you think that does? That allows the door to be left open for another country to step in and become the manufacturing bastion of the world. Who do you think did that? Let's look at this article by the Information Technology and Innovation Foundation. It says, "Wake up, America. China is overtaking the United States in innovation capacity." This article was published in 2023, and it says, based on key indicators of innovation and advanced industry performance, China has surpassed the United States in total innovation output and is getting close on a proportional basis. To regain its leadership, the United States must respond more strategically and forcefully. It says China is positioned to evolve from an imitator to an innovator, following the path blazed by its Asian tiger neighbors. It has already shown itself capable of leading the world in a number of advanced technologies such as supercomputers and high-speed rail. China's potential for innovation threatens the market share of the United States and allied nations in high-value added advanced industries, which are important to U.S. prosperity and security. In 2010, China's innovation and advanced industry capabilities were approximately 58% of the U.S. capabilities on the proportional basis, accounting for size of its economy and population, and 78% of U.S. output in absolute terms. By 2020, China's innovation and advanced industry capabilities increased to roughly 75% of U.S. capabilities on a proportional basis and 139% in absolute terms. China made notable progress in most of the innovation indicators the Information Technology and Innovation Foundation examined, and each indicator group with its greatest progress coming in innovation outputs. China still faces economic challenges, but its progress in a wide range of innovation indicators suggests that it is on the path to overtake the United States in innovation and advanced industry output in both proportional and absolute terms. We should be worried about this. And this is another reason why Trump is bringing manufacturing home. Look, I don't want to talk about it, but if we ever went to World War III or we went to war with China or Russia, we need to have the manufacturing capability to be at and remain at war. China manufactures a lot of products. They could easily convert those manufacturing facilities to create military weapons, and they would have a consistent supply chain to the front lines. The United States during World War II already had this in place. We manufactured lots of stuff. We had the manufacturing capabilities. We converted them to military manufacturing hubs, and we, kept the front lines stocked. Slowly, that manufacturing went away, and it definitely weakened us as a country. And we really need to bring that home. And this is what Trump is pushing these tariffs for also. Not only for the benefit of our economy, but for the benefit of our security. Because our enemies around the world are manufacturing bastions of the world. Look at something in your house. Just flip it over. Everybody knows 90% of the shit is either made in Mexico or made in China. We need to bring this stuff back, made in the USA. Then we know that that company is feeding Americans, and it's a good company to be spending your money at. It's time to make America great again, and this is a huge step in that direction. The consequences of losing the competitive edge in advanced high-value-added industries are different than those of losing the edge in a low-skilled industry for 3 reasons. Barriers to reentry, loss of good-paying jobs, and national security. If its unitary cost of labor, the ratio of wages to productivity, were to fall enough, the United States could re-enter low-skilled industries quite easily. Relatively little know-how and machinery are required to start producing in these industries, so market entrants could simply purchase the equipment and hire the labor necessary with few obstacles. However, this is not the case in advanced industries such as semiconductors or aerospace manufacturing. Entry into these industries requires high-skill labor, massive investments, and specialized equipment, and in many cases the ability to tread water enough until know-how is acquired to take advantage of economies to scale. To take semiconductor manufacturing as an example. The process of manufacturing one DRAM chip consists of over 1,000 steps. Entering the DRAM or DRAM market and gaining market share requires the procurement of specialized complex machinery capable of carrying out these tasks and understanding of the manufacturing process of the firm's workers, from the factory floor to the research laboratory, and the right innovation ecosystem, universities to train talent, sufficient network of supplies, etc., to foster the industry. The firm may have to operate at a loss for some time until it has acquired enough know-how and become productive enough to capture the advantages of economics of scale required to become competitive in the international market. Thus, re-entering advanced technology incentive industries or technology intense industries is far more difficult than re-entering lower skilled industries, obviously, Remaining competitive in advanced technology intense industries is crucial for national security. The superiority of the U.S. military rests largely on its technological superiority. This extends beyond technology for the physical battlefield and now crucially includes areas such as cybersecurity and intelligence gathering. A loss of competitiveness in the production of technologies crucial to national defense and an increase in dependence on other countries means 2 things. First, it means the United States becomes more dependent on other countries to supply its military. Stupid. While this may be less concerning, if the production is shifted to an ally country, this dynamic would be incredibly concerning if the production was shifted to, somewhere like China or Russia, who we're not an outright adversary, but we are definitely geopolitical rivals with. Number 2, even if the United States could reliably count on other countries to provide us with military technologies and supplies, its superiority would be diminished by definition. If the United States has to rely on others for the development and production of defensive technologies, then the military can only be as technologically advanced as whoever's supplying us. This is less concerning if those developing and producing the technologies are allies again, but it would be unsettling if the developer were a country such as China. It also is concerning if the developer is even an ally, because an ally can't always be trusted. Are we going to have these allies forever? I don't think that we should treat it that way. And if you look at the way that we're being taxed or tariffed by these other countries, they're only taking advantage of us anyways. If those countries had to put in the amount of GDP into their military that we are expecting them to, to put into NATO or even to just protect themselves, how many of the social services that they provide to their citizens would have to go away? Do you think they would have free health care if they actually had a big military in order to protect themselves? They only have those things because we have a big military to protect ourselves. And they think that because we're their friend, they don't need to do anything, and that if they go to war, it's going to be our fight. This is what Trump wants to get rid of, and I'm 100% behind him. The globalization of supply chains has yielded amazing benefits in efficiency and cost reduction to economies all over the place. But the supply chain distributions that were triggered by COVID-19 have shown that globalization introduces economic fragility. It was especially evident for semiconductors. The shortage that Taiwan experienced when COVID-19 hit and they had to close all their factories, we weren't even able to get chips for like 6 months or so. Everything was backed up, and that should never be the case. If we were in the middle of a war and we couldn't get any of those chips, we are screwed. We're not able to produce anything. And this is why we are tariffing these other countries, bringing manufacturing home. It's going to put money in our pockets. Not to mention boost our national security. We can't allow China to innovate and catch up or even surpass the United States in these key areas in military, in AI. That could be very dangerous for us. We had the lead in economy. We've been the, shiny golden city on the hill for so many years, and we allowed it to slip through our fingers because we've been arrogant. We've been trying to be too helpful to other countries, trying to pull them into our ways. Why do we need to impose democracy? Why do we need this republic to be spread across the planet? Why can't we let these people govern themselves the way they do? And if they fuck with us, then they find out. If they want to be friends with us and trade with us, then let's make a fair and equal deal. Why do we have to subsidize other countries? There's no reason for any of this. The other thing that we need to do is we need to deregulate, because regulation hurts innovation. Now, MIT in 2023 wrote a paper on just this issue. It says firms are less likely to innovate if increasing their headcount leads to additional regulation, a new study from NIT Sloan finds. Overregulation is strangling America and its industries in so many different ways. MIT writes, it's a timely topic for both cryptocurrency and generative artificial intelligence, with policymakers struggling to establish guardrails around wildly popular innovation while continuing to spur development. Technologists may be justified in regarding regulation with caution. A new working paper for the National Bureau of Economic Research shows that regulation can dampen innovation. Specifically, companies are hesitant to invest their operations when hiring more employees increases regulatory oversight. Why would you subject yourself as a company to more regulation as your company grows? You're going to innovate much slower and keep that portion of your company at a smaller size so that you don't have to meet the stringent regulations of the federal and local governments. Probably still the local governments, but at least the federal government. The author of this paper, John Van Reenen, says that the prospect of regulatory costs discourages innovation. He says that in most countries, including the United States, regulations vary based on firm size. If a company's headcount remains below a certain number, it usually isn't subject to more stringent regulations. Van Reenen said, in the U.S., for example, if a business has at least 50 full-time employees, the company is considered an applicable large employer and is subject to the employer shared responsibility provisions and employer information reporting provisions. The article goes on to state, Van Reenen and his co-researchers discovered that two groups of companies were especially affected by regulation. Companies close to the 50 employee mark innovated less. As you get to the 50 employee mark, there is a real slowdown in patent innovation, and it flattens just past 50, Van Rennen said. There is a valley of innovation just before this 50 threshold, consistent with the idea that firms are innovating less because they are afraid to cross the threshold. Firms under 50 employees respond less to promising market opportunities because they know they'll have to pay on extra costs. And the second is larger companies are affected too. The incentive to innovate declines as companies get bigger because they know that every time they innovate, they should be taxed. They stand to be taxed on the profits. The authors were able to equate regulation with the tax using their model. They concluded that the impact of regulation is equivalent to the tax on profit of about 2.5% that reduces aggregate innovation by 5.4%. In addition, the researchers found that market size affects innovation. Firms innovate more as the market size increases. The bigger the market, the more incentive firms have to innovate to get profits from that market. It only makes sense. As the markets get bigger, firms innovate more, Van Rennen said. They can spend the R&D costs over a greater number of units, so you see more innovations. The authors didn't delve deeply into the sectors, but noted that exporting manufacturing sectors were more patent intensive than others. And it just depends on what market you're really in. You know, if you're trying to patent AI, it's going to be a lot harder than patenting a steam powered train or something stupid like that. But you know, that only makes sense also. The point being is that America is over-regulating so many sectors and so many industries within our country that innovation is being reduced or taken overseas because the companies don't even want to have to deal with the regulators here in America in the first place. As for right now, it's really just us who's finding out because corporations are leaving and we have geniuses who are leaving the United States to go develop their technologies in other places because of the regulations that are thwarting their process in order to move their advancements and move their innovations forward. Now, if you ever watched the Tucker Carlson show, this guy Patrick Swoon, he was on and was interviewed by Tucker, and I really encourage you to go and listen to the entire hour and 50-minute interview. But this gentleman, Patrick Swoon, has developed a new generation vaccine, and he's investing to build the plant, a new generation manufacturing plant in South Africa instead of the United States. And it's based on cancer immunotherapy and the COVID-19 virus. Granted, this guy was born in South Africa, so he's just returning to his country. But he launched a vaccine manufacturing plant in South Africa instead of the United States when he studied in the United States, and he has developed other biotech companies in the United States. And he decided this time that he wants to go to South Africa with it. Why is that? If we were to make it easy on these billionaires to continue to innovate here, they would stay here, and that would offer very high-skilled jobs to American citizens. So the article says that this guy is, investing $195 million into the South African operation that aims to produce 1 billion vaccine doses by this year. He had been moved to invest in improving South Africa's vaccine capacity after witnessing vaccine apartheid during COVID-19 pandemic. Unlikely current vaccines that are based on stimulating the body to produce antibodies. Sun Seong's approach is based on simulating the body's T-cell responses, something he has done successfully in cancer immunotherapy treatments. His U.S. company, has developed natural killer or NK cells used by the immune system to identify and destroy cells under stress, including cancerous and virally infected cells. NANTK, N-A-T or N-A-N-T-K West, NANTK describes itself as a pioneering next-generation critical stage immunotherapy company that is focused on harnessing the unique power of your immune system using natural killer cells to treat cancer, infectious diseases, and inflammatory diseases. It has not yet developed a commercial product based on NK cells. But this is very, very interesting because this NK cell killer, he has a company that is called BioShield, and it has pretty much eradicated bladder cancer for all of his patients. He's got great outcomes. People who have gone into remission and remained in remission. This guy is trying to like revolutionize the vaccine world, and he really goes against the COVID-19 vaccine and how that vaccine went about creating immunity, which it really doesn't even create immunity if you listen to what he says in that Tucker Carlson interview. But he also says that he has spent 10 to 15 years trying to show that antibodies are important, that T cells are what kill. He said he comes from the position of cancer, and he took the same technology and has actually put it into vaccines. So creating the T cell, the NK cell, a killer cell that recognizes a virus or recognizes a tumor or recognizes cancer and kills it before it becomes a big problem to you, and you pass that virus or that cancer out of your body and it's completely gone. He said he admitted that his approach has been really difficult for people to grasp at the regulatory level, at the science level, and at the implementation level. He said that he started in the U.S., but when he saw the need, the inequities that he called the vaccine apartheid that was happening here in the United States, and within the encouragement of South African, or at the encouragement of the South African president, he decided to move to South Africa and just say to heck with the United States regulations altogether. And this is a terrible thing for the United States. These are medical innovations that are moving abroad that we could use here in the United States to boost our economy, and also improve the world through innovation. Again, it seems like America is pushing all the innovators away. We're totally against big business and everything that they can do for our society. And I think we really need to come around and start looking at why. Why are we doing this to the big companies, and what could be the benefit of bringing them home? Trump is putting these tariffs in place to bring manufacturing home. I can't say it enough. And when manufacturing comes home, the amount of jobs and also the amount of product, supply and demand. So we'll have tons of supply here in America. If the demand goes up, it keeps the prices low. These are all good things for the American people, and Democrats want to continue to cry and freak out. I know that you're seeing the stock market go down, but if I could tell you anything, and I'm not trying to give you financial advice, but look at the market in the past, and the times where it has fallen like this are the times where you could have reaped the biggest benefit in the future. So keep that in mind while you're watching the markets go down. What this gentleman, this Dr. Patrick Swoon-Shung, has been going after is basically your body's white blood cells and your body's ability to recognize that a tumor is a tumor, and then your body will attack it. So your body has the ability to kill a tumor on its own, has the ability to kill COVID-19. Obviously, everybody who didn't get a vaccine that contracted COVID-19 that's still here, well, that shows that we have an immune system. And these are all things that this doctor is advocating for. We have the correct weapons in place. We just need to make the body understand what it's looking at so that those processes naturally take place. And he says he's figured out a way to basically replicate billions of your T cells and then put them back in your body, and then they go to work. I'm not a doctor, and I'm not even going to try to pretend like I understand this completely, but I do understand that, the white blood cells are the soldiers in the blood, and they are the ones who go and they eat and kill viruses and all the bad stuff in your blood. And this stuff makes a lot of sense to me, and when he's talking about it with Tucker Carlson, he's saying that we have the immune system and we have the correct weapons within our body, but no doctors and no scientists ever really want to go in that direction to figure out how to make that system work better. And why is that? He couldn't explain it. And I think we all know the answer. It's because they don't want to fix us. They want to have a medical industry. They want to keep us sick. They want to just remedy a problem but not let it go away so that they can continue to make money. And this all comes down to shareholders and feeding the stock market, feeding that bitch they call the stock market. The other thing that makes me really respect this guy, or makes me pretty intrigued by him, is this little sentence here. It says, Shun Xiang, one of the wealthiest medical doctors in the world, has also been described as a blowhard and a showman by Forbes magazine. Fuck Forbes magazine. We know what they're all about. It says, although the magazine also quoted a patient who said that his experimental pancreatic cancer treatment had saved his life. So the person said he saves his life, but the magazine writes he's a blowhard and a showman. That makes me really, really intrigued, because usually these people that create something incredible end up getting killed, or they're shunned by the whole industry. And it seems how Forbes magazine wants to bash him. It makes me really interested. Plus, I listened to the Tucker Carlson show, which I'm about to play a few clips here. But actually, let's just get into that. Watch this.
Doctor, thanks a lot for coming on. So you spent your life, 50 years working on treatments for cancer. And when you started, it seemed like we were moving in the West toward the elimination of cancer. Smoking was a huge emphasis. Get rid of tobacco, and cancer rates will drop. Obviously, smoking does cause cancer, and we got rid of it basically, but cancer rates went up. And that is a very rarely remarked upon mystery that really bothers me. Tell us, since you made billions of dollars selling your companies, but you're still involved in medical research, which I admire. Where are we now with cancer? What are you seeing in cancer rates?
Well, what's really worrisome to me now is not just the rate, but the population in which it's increasing, i.e. the younger people. So we're clearly seeing an increase in certain types of cancer, like pancreatic cancer, ovarian cancer, and we're seeing that colon cancer, and we're seeing it in younger people.
Just to set a baseline, what's the 10-year survival rate for pancreatic cancer?
It's horrible. I think, if you have pancreatic cancer today, I don't think there is a 10-year survival rate, so to speak.
Yes.
What there is, however, if you have patients who are what we call failed all standard of care, the survival rate is in months. You measure it in 2 months.
Yes. That's certainly my understanding, having watched a lot of people die of it. So advanced pancreatic cancer is a death sentence. Where are you seeing it now?
Well, I got to tell you a really concerning story. It's not only am I seeing it now, I'm seeing it in younger people. And for the first time in my career, when I left UCLA, I was doing all the Whipples, which is a surgery to actually remove most of the pancreas, a very big operation.
You're a surgeon as well.
I'm a surgeon.
Yes.
And I was also doing pancreas transplants for type 2 diabetes and islet cell transplants and stem cell transplants. So I had this diverse activity as a UCLA assistant professor. But I never saw pancreatic cancer in children. And the greatest surprise to me was a 13-year-old with metastatic pancreatic cancer that the family called us to help. And to me, that was not only devastating, it emphasized the idea that we're seeing people with higher incidence of pancreatic cancer and younger. Right now in our clinic, we have 45-year-old, 50-year-old. And what was sad about this young boy, by the time he came to see us, he had exhausted all standard of care. And he came from Butler, Pennsylvania. And all the major medical centers really had exhausted all their therapy. And by the time he came to see us, his body was ridden and he passed away. So seeing cancers now in younger people and almost a rise, almost like I don't want to call it a non-infectious pandemic, but this is what I think is going to worrisome in the world, not just in the United States, but largely in the United States, we're beginning to see this, and it's really worrisome.
A non-infectious pandemic of cancer, including deadly cancers.
Correct.
Like pancreatic. In your career, which I think is about 50 years of working on this, how many 13-year-old pancreatic cancer patients have you seen?
Never.
Never.
I inquired around because it bothered me so much now of why this is happening. So Dr. Stephen Day, who was a good friend who was trained with me at UCLA when I was at UCLA, he's now at the Angeles Clinic, and I called him and he said, listen, Patrick, I'm now seeing an 8-year-old, a 10-year-old, an 11-year-old with colon cancer. Colon cancer. We've never seen that. We're seeing now 30-year-old, 40-year-old ladies, young ladies with ovarian cancer. So this is a real phenomenon of a rise of cancer in early people, in young people, and really need to get to the bottom of that.
Do you notice a difference in the virility of the cancer, of the speed with which it moves?
Well, I'm getting reports, they've even called it turbocharged cancer.
Yes, I've heard that phrase.
Right. I'm getting reports of that now, that people that have been in remission before even are now getting back the cancers and very rapidly progressing. So if you really think about what the cause of cancer is, and I did a piece with Sanjay Gupta many, many years ago on 60 Minutes. And I said, the cause of cancer is its inability, it's not the rapidity of its growth, but its inability to die. And its inability to die is because it either hides from the cells that matter, i.e. your natural killer cells, your T cells, or, and this is what I'm really worried about, your body and the cancer has found a way to suppress your killer cells. And once they do that, once they activate what you call the suppressor cells, and you call yourself immunosuppressed, and then I think you see this rapid progression because there's nothing stopping them.
What could possibly be causing this?
Well, I think if you look back of causes, ironically, when I was doing at UCLA, I was working on pancreas transplant where I want to immunosuppress the patients.
Yes, you have to.
Yeah,
right?
Because you prevent it. And then I was working on cancer where I don't want to immunosuppress. So I needed to understand the body's mechanism, and we have a crazy, wonderful, exquisite balance in our body. You have the yin and the yang of the killer cells, and these things called natural killer cells and T cells.
Whose job is to kill anything that threatens the body?
Whose job is to kill, quite right, anything that threatens the body, whether the body has infection, if you have TB, you have HIV, if you have hepatitis, you have COVID. These cells are there to recognize these infected cells and kill it. As you and I are sitting here today, our stem cells are growing in order to replenish parts of your body, your heart. If you didn't have that, you wouldn't have a heart. At the age of 14, you need those stem cells. But mathematically, there are some cells that are transformed, and your body recognizes that through these natural killer cells and kills it. I call that nature's first responder. And that's your mechanism. That's how we are all protected, and we are in this state of equilibrium or balance. On the other hand, the moment either the tumor finds a way to hide from these cells, or your body's or the tumor causes these cells to be suppressed. And that's why I call this the suppressor cells. And there are certain cells in your body called Treg cells or myelo-derived suppressor cells. These are all technical. That when they get upregulated, you've lost your protection. And so the question then is, how do we understand this balance? How do we increase the killers and how do we decrease the suppressors? So that's been 50 years of my challenge of, and how do we expose the tumor? So on the one hand, you need to expose the tumor because it hides from the killers. On the other hand, you activate the killers. On the other hand, you have to suppress the suppressors. So we're truly playing a game of chess. And I think like a astrophysicist, where you're looking for God's particle, where all these molecules are floating around, talking to each other, all the cells are floating around, talking to each other, and this dynamic interaction. And how do you understand all of that? You know, one of the best, most fun lectures I gave, I've given a lot of lectures on this and try to be non-technical because it's basic, what I call basic immunology. And the problem with cancer is it's been treated by oncologists and not immunologists. And immunologists don't see patients because they look at basic immunology. And then when you have infection, then you have virology. So this cross disciplines of virology, immunology, oncology, all these ologies don't talk to each other.
Yes.
So
you're saying, just big picture for non-specialists, of which I'm, of course, one, you're saying that cancer is to some extent a problem with your immune system.
If that doesn't interest you, I don't know what will. I encourage you to go and watch the entire interview on Rumble, on the Tucker Carlson channel. Again, the doctor's name is Patrick Soon-Shiung, and it's a great watch. That 10 minutes right there is riveting. It gets you going, you know. They're looking at COVID-19 as if it's cancer, and cancer as if it's a virus, and trying to bring those three different career paths all together and have them communicate and work together, because our body is one organism. It's not a bunch of separate stuff. They all work together. It makes complete sense. But I really appreciate you guys for joining me today. This is the third episode. I know the forum has changed quite a bit. Did a lot of talking today. We cut down on the clips, and this is the way we're going to try to continue moving forward in the future with this forum. Might have some sections and stuff added in. The show is constantly evolving, but I really appreciate you guys for spending the time with me. Thank you again, and we'll see you next week.
We will make America strong again. We will make America proud again. We will make America safe again. And we will make America great again. God bless you and good night. I love you.
President Donald Trump knows how to make America great. Deal from strength or get crushed every time.